Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching another episode of Overbooked. This is the series where I talk about every single book on my shelves because I will unlock the secrets of alchemy. Today we are talking about Davinia Evans' The Burnished City series. So we are talking about Notorious Sorcerer and its sequel, Shadow Baron. Some quick disclaimers before we start. I had review copies of both books in this series. Could I tell you where my review copy of Shadow Baron has gone? No. It has been stolen by gremlins in my house. I don't know where it has gone. Just know that I do have one. Regardless of where books come from, nobody's paying me to talk about books except my patrons, and all opinions are my own. I'm going to keep this as spoiler-free as humanly possible. I am going to be talking about both books that are out in the series so far, but I'm not going to spoil either book 1 or book 2 for you. If you do want to go in knowing absolutely nothing, pause the video, come back when you've read it and we'll talk then. And I will link the story graph for the series down below in case you want to check out any user-generated content warnings. This is a fantasy series. It is not an urban fantasy, but it is a fantasy set in a city, if that matters to you. It is a somewhat comedic series. I wouldn't say it's ha-ha giggles funny, but comedy comes up when you look at the title, the bit under Google Books, so I thought that was worth mentioning. Broadly speaking, I would describe it as a city fantasy book, if that helps you. The first book released in 2022, the sequel released in 2023, and I haven't looked at when the third book's going to be out. I assume at some point in the future. On her website it says, born in the tropics and raised on British comedy, which I thought was very, very interesting. Again, those comedic turns within the book make a lot more sense. Davinia Evans is an author currently based in Australia, and Notorious Sorcerer was her debut novel. We are in the Burnished City, the city of Berzim. I'm pretty sure that's what it was called. Yes, I have a memory that functions. This is a city packed full of dangerous and very strictly regulated alchemical magic. Our main character, Sion, who has been described as a bit of a disaster bisexual sorcerer, he's desperate to learn alchemy properly instead of scrabbling and scraping around, which is what he's currently doing. However, when he accidentally commits an act of truly impossible magic and the alchemical planes start to kind of fall out of alignment, he has to try and fix it, and he's going to have to work with a lot of different people in order to do so. This is a story about a man who causes a problem and then has to desperately try and find a solution. One of the big selling points of city books, especially city fantasy books, in my opinion, is how you craft your world, and in this case the world really is the city. Berzim is a really interesting one. It's a place that has had alchemical disasters in the past. A whole chunk of the city is just gone, and I really liked the way that the history of the city and the history of the city's relationship with alchemy played into how magic works in the city, plays into the law enforcement, that plays into how people feel about magic and alchemy. It's a really interesting interconnected world. But there's also a really good sense, particularly as you move into book 2, of how other areas of the city function, how commerce works, how the flower district, which is very similar to perhaps a red light district, works, and how the people who run that operate. The class differences. We have the who kind of run the streets and wield swords. There's a lot of different elements. Not all of them get 100% spotlight in such a way that I can completely understand them and explain them to you, but I think you get a real sense of the breadth of this city and the ways in which this world functions. And if you're a person who really loves an interesting fantasy city, this is one. I think my other big selling point for this series, why you should read it, are the characters. I personally always love a disaster character. Sion was a lovely time. He wasn't my favourite character, especially as we move into book 2. Some of the plot threads of particularly the female characters were some of my absolute favourite storytelling tropes, so I have an awful lot of personal reasons why I particularly love those. But I did think that overall the character work was stellar, especially bringing in book 2 as well. There's a real sense of character growth, there's a real sense of meeting different people, exploring new ideas, new storytelling journeys, and I think that's partly why I enjoyed book 2 more than book 1, is there was more of a sense of other characters having plot arcs than it felt like there were in book 1. Book 1's very Sion focused. I think as a result of that world building that I talked about and how there's so many different aspects of the world and aspects of the city, it really does feel like this is a series with a huge amount of scope. I could not currently tell you where book 3 is going to go. I don't think I could have told you where book 2 was going to go either. At the start of book 1, there is no real sense of where the end of the story is going to get to, and I found that really exciting. I think it's a testament to good writing that they still feel like they have a very good pace, that you still feel like you're reaching a destination at the right time. But I think if you're wanting a very standard, I can tell where the beginning, middle, end of this book is going to be, this is not that for you. But if you like a little bit of excitement, if you like that really huge, expansive ideas that are going on, this is a series that you might enjoy. That being said, I have obviously read book 1 twice and book 2 only once, so that's my reading context for it. I liked book 1 a lot more on a reread, and I think knowing where it ended up helped me understand the pacing of particularly the earlier segments of the story, which are a little bit slow. And that's kind of the problem with these world-building-y fantasy city books, is you've got to do quite a lot of setting up of things, so it can make everything feel a little bit slow. Book 2, that is much less of a problem. With the addition of book 2, treating this much more like a package rather than just as one single book and another single book, I felt much more positive about the series as a whole. For reference, when I first read book 1, I thought I was going to pick up book 2, not really love it, and end up getting rid of them. However, when I reread it and read book 2, it cemented it as a series that I was going to read and recommend more often. Again, primarily a book 1 issue, but obviously you do have to read book 1 first, so I am bringing it up. I think the focus is too much on Sion, and where in book 2 we get to see much more of other characters, and there's much more of a spotlight on the ensemble rather than just on one character. It is more solid. That's obviously going to depend on your opinions on him as a main character, and whether you are willing to get through a book, or if you wish there were more of him in book 2, but that was my opinion reading these, is I could have done with more of that ensemble view earlier on. And the last thing I will mention in terms of things you might want to bear in mind if you're picking this up is it does have a very specific tone. Obviously, Davinia Evans is drawing from that love of British comedy. I didn't read these as being particularly comedic. I wonder if knowing that and reframing it as that, I might feel more that way if I read it again. We're going to have to find out when book 3 comes out, I guess. But they do have a very specific tone, and if you don't get on with that tone, you're not going to get on with the book as a whole. I wouldn't progress with it if it's really something that's not working for you. In terms of other things you might want to read, obviously there are oodles of city fantasy books out there. One of the ones that I recommend all the time is Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett. I think particularly the ways in which different kinds of magic are explored in this, and there is very much a sense of experimental magic and trying to work with the existing systems and bend the rules and go your own way with things. Very much a parallel between Foundryside and this. I've also included Library of the Unwritten in my comparisons, and partly that's because my eyes are scanning down my shelves, those are the books I see, but I do think there is something in the adventure element of these books. Both books tie off fairly neatly. One contained adventure with continuation between the two, and I think that Library of the Unwritten has very much a sense of characters on a quest doing a thing, and that is how I felt in Notorious Sorcerer as well. Overall, I had a really good time reading these books the second time, so bear that in mind, taking my recommendation either way. I think so much of it depends on mood, so much of it depends on what kind of fantasy book you're looking for in that exact moment, and the particular storytelling tropes that you personally enjoy. Book 2 hits so hard on a lot of things that I absolutely love, so of course I was going to love it, and I think that really coloured my experience of book 1 as well, kind of in retrospect. It all meshed together into a beautiful everything. I'll be really interested, therefore, to see how book 3 makes me feel, because often with trilogies, especially debut trilogies, the second book can be a bit of an outlier, either in the very positive or the very negative way. So we'll have to hold on to our boots and see what magicalness book 3 brings. Right, it is absolutely freezing in my office, so we're going to draw this to a close so that I can go warm my hands on a lovely enormous cup of tea. Have you read any of the books in the Burnished City series? I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. While you're commenting, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. You can also come hang out on Discord, where we have chill chats about books. That's all in the description. I'd like to say an enormous thank you to all the ghosts who haunt me over on Patreon. They support the channel and in return get early access to videos, bonus content, access to my weekly live streams, and more. If you'd like to join their number, that's linked below as well. Thank you so much to you for watching. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one.